Hello, everyone, and welcome to Canadians with Disabilities and Their Allies. My name is Brent Frain. I'm the host, and you can check out your favorite Spotify app. You can check out anywhere you find your favorite, when you're on the go. Like, you can check out all the audio formats and check it out. And definitely, when you kind of don't even want to watch it live and you need some extra time, just check out where you find the show most suitable for you. And also, please subscribe to Neil Matheson's YouTube channel to stay up to date on the recent shows that come up. If it's Breaking with Brent, it's Traveling Segment, it's Coffee Time, you name it, it's there. And you can find the calendar too. Just go up to daddybentlegs.com and find out who's coming up next on the show. You want
we have it linked on every video too. So after this video is posted, you can actually even go to the description of the video of Debbie's video, and it'll say go to the calendar, click that link, and you know what's coming up. We've got a really packed week this week. We've got like 4 shows this week, so yeah.
Yeah, and today I'm actually really excited to have Debbie McCoy joining me live today. And wow, Debbie, thank you so much for coming back on. It's always a great pleasure having you on. And today we're going to be talking about disability poverty. And Debbie's going to be just jumping into talking about her lived experience of what she's going through and any updates of what she wants to talk about. And yeah, she's gone through a lot in her life. Anyway, she would know best what she's going through rather than me telling everything about Debbie. And here's Debbie.
Hi everyone. First off, a happy late International Peoples with Disability Day. I guess that was Sunday. It always sucks when it falls on the weekend because it feels like it doesn't get as much traction as it should.
Yeah.
So, maybe, next year it'll fall on a Wednesday or whatever, and people will actually respond. But I was kind of hoping that the government would make some big announcement regarding the Canadian disability benefit, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. I do know that it's underway from what I've read and from what I understand, and from what the minister has said. So, all we can do is just hope that the April budget will bring us some good tidings, right?
Yeah.
Now I know under the Senate had put the regulation that it had to be implemented by June. So let's cross our fingers and toes in hopes that it actually happens.
Yeah.
Because right now everything's so bloody expensive that it's getting hard. And like, I'm in a good situation, I have a husband and family and like stuff, and but it's still hard. So I can't imagine living strictly on disability like my mom did. And she was a single parent, so she had nothing except herself to rely on. And I can't imagine what it's like for other people that are in her situation out there that, I see them at the grocery store. I pay attention, right? Like, I look and I see people and I wish that I could do something to help, but I can't because I'm in the same boat almost. And anyway, it's just a horrible reality to live in. And I wish that our government would do something to expedite everything a little bit quicker, considering we've been waiting for so long. But I just don't see that happening anytime soon. So we just gotta, I guess, grin and bear it and put more strain on the food banks and more strain on all the provincial programs and federal programs that are available. And yeah, it's just an unfortunate reality. That's all it is.
There's so
You
many
know,
people that are struggling. I mean, the buying power, Debbie, like $100 used to buy a pretty good amount of groceries at one time. Now you're lucky that $100, it's almost like you're getting maybe $20 worth of groceries. It almost seems like, and you have to be really, or maybe 30, depending on what you're buying. But yeah, you're only getting like 5, 6 items. Like I know one day I went to the store and it was like the bill came to like $37 and I had like 5 items and they weren't big items.
It's the same as me. I go to the grocery store. It's like, what did I buy? And it's like $100.
Yeah.
And like you and I have talked about it, Brent, of like this year for sure. I think it's for sure like the leanest Christmas that I've ever really experienced, I'm sure. Because like everything went up this year. My property tax just over last year over doubled.
Oh my.
I told you my assessment on my condo, and I mean I've talked about this all the time, is like, I bought my condo as a house, not as an investment, right?
Right.
And I mean, I was able to buy it back in it was 2005 when we bought it, and I bought it for 129. And here it is. It's a 28-year-old building with 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, and again, 28-year-old building condo, and it's appraised at over $600,000. So guess who's paying the $600 of $600,000 assessment in taxes now?
Tax on the $600,000.
I mean, how do you expect me to afford the taxes on this when I'm only getting like PWD assistance, right?
Yeah,
and
then
I'm just barely. And the thing is, though, we've talked about too. Like, I mean, yes, I could sell this place,
right? But then
what do I do, right? I mean, then I'll be screwed because I'll be spending like $3,000 a month on rent.
Or 4,000. I mean, some
or
places
4,000, right?
Yeah. Depending on the community that you live in, and of course, the government always says, well, if you can't afford to live in a certain area, move up north or move somewhere in a rural area. But now you're not going to have your doctors, you're not going to have specialists to go to, you're not going to have maybe accessible transit to get you to grocery stores, you name it, or be part of the community, be part of a family. Like, and now you're really far away from family. Yeah, I mean, it's always easy to say, well, if you don't like it there, then move.
Yeah, they always say that, but again, like my doctor, I lucked out. Like I always say, I'm very lucky to have the disease I have because the #1 specialist in the world is in my city. So like how lucky, right? Like I'm just very fortunate there. So I'm not gonna move anytime soon because the only other specialist that I know of is in Nova Scotia, and I'm not moving to Nova Scotia. There's just no way, right? Like I know that it's beautiful there. I have family that lives there, but I'm still not gonna do it because I have my whole support network here. Yeah. So, my sons have their whole support network, and it's not fair to uproot everyone, even though I'd make a fortune, but I'm just not interested.
And you make a great point though, for anybody though, like when you have a disability, of course you want to be close to doctors. Like a lot of disabilities require a lot of doctor's appointments and things like that. And you're not going to be close to doctors in the rural areas. I mean, sure, you can pay less rent, but you're a lot more removed from, like, even in your case, Brent. I mean, I wouldn't call Victoria rural, and neither would you, but you and Sonia both have, like, she has to come for doctors here all the time in Vancouver, right?
Yes.
Like that's a common thing for you. And like, again, like Victoria is not rural, but it's very removed from a lot of specialist doctors though.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a beautiful place to come to visit, as a tourist, to go to just to get away for maybe a little bit, if you're able to afford to do that. But to live here, it's very costly. I mean, I have a grocery store. It's fortunate that it's one of them is actually just down the road from here, which is about a 15-minute walk. So if I take my time, I can get there in 15 minutes. but it's a save on foods. I mean, and that's, I mean, great. But if I wanted variety and I wanted a variety of stores where maybe the price is a little bit cheaper somewhere else, now I got to travel way further. If I want to go to a superstore, real Canadian superstore, it's an hour bus ride from here. If I want to go to Walmart, just for instance, yeah, it's about another 10-minute bus ride. So it's not bad. Like I've got some variations, but in where I moved from, I had everything was in walking distance. I could go to a doctor's appointment. I could go to all the shops, independent shops in the community, support the local shops because I was able to do so at that time. Now I had to relocate, and the same thing. Like I didn't want to. I couldn't find a place that was available at the time when I needed it. Lucky for me, Sonia actually found this place. It was amazing. At the time when we found this place, Debbie, the cell phone network at the time, they were having an outage across nationwide, and so the landlord, who I was trying to phone, like there was no dial, so there was no dial tone. So I thought, what's going on? So I was almost ready to give up on phoning it. Sonia says, well, try one more time. I said, fine, I'll try one more time. And if I can't get through, we'll have to just figure something else out. I didn't know what.
Right.
And they answered the phone. I'm like, oh, the phone rang. I'm like, and it was a really choppy connection. The landlord answered and said, oh, you're the first call of the day. Oh, I'm surprised my phone rang. I go, what do you mean the first call of the day? Well, our phone's been down. I said, yeah, I couldn't get through either. You know, can I help you? I said, we're just looking for a place. And piles of landlords in the community in Victoria had referred us over to them. They said, because we don't have anything, like call us at the end of the month or call us at the beginning of the month. And I said, well, that's too late. Like I would have to give my notice in. I can't just give my notice in and then hope that I'm going to find a place, because now if I didn't find a place, now I'd be in a bad spot. I'd be homeless because now if the landlord rented out our place, then, you know, what do you do, right? So we found this place like a month and a half, almost 2 months in advance. So it was perfect. We went over and saw it. We scouted around the area just ahead of time, just to see if it's going to be a good area. I mean, when I say good, safe. You know, I wanted a safe place I could call maybe a temporary home. And being in Victoria, it's great for advocacy, Debbie. It's great for advocacy, holding the politicians to account, and that's great. But I still don't call it home. Like home is still out in the valley of where I grew up, but I can't afford to live there. The prices now are like rent prices are, oh my gosh, over $2,000 now.
You can have lunch with Dan Davies though, which is nice.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, a place that we rented.
Shout out to Dan Davies.
It's now $2,000 for a place that we rented from. A new place that we had moved to. Get this, I'm glad you're sitting down, Debbie. The place that we rented from is now $2,650 after we moved, and I couldn't even believe that the price was that high.
Yeah,
sky's the limit, right? It's unbelievable.
Everything's a little more expensive. Well, I shouldn't say a lot more expensive now. And like, I don't know how people are able to do it. Like, I look and just comparatively, like we bought our house in 2018, fortunately, with money from my accident settlement. So that was just serendipity. But looking at rents now, like there's no way I could do it 100%. Like I'd be sorry, I'm still speaking. But like I'd be upset if I had to spend all of my disability earnings on rent instead of groceries, you know, like some people I'm sure are having to do. And I just think it's unfortunate. Like my mom, when I lived with her, when I was younger, like all of her money still went to groceries and rent. Like there was nothing left over. So there's probably lots of people in the same boat, and especially with the holidays coming up, it's unfortunate because there's so much pressure at the holidays to spend more than what we have to make the people in our lives happier, right? We want to get all those toys and all those things for the people we love to show them that we love them, but the reality is it's just not feasible, you know. And like my sons have a list for as long as my arm, but you know, I've told them, I said, listen, Santa's belt is getting a little tighter this year. So, you know, they're old enough. They understand that there's no Santa. But, you know, I said, if we don't believe in Santa, then there's no presents from Santa. So we're going to fake it. And Yeah, so I told them, I said, like, it's tight this year, and if it's tight for us, then it's tight for everyone. You know, and
Yeah.
I see a lot of people online who are getting gifts, and they're having to sell the gifts that they're getting from like Salvation Army or whatever, just to, and people are like,
Yeah.
oh, but they should be doing that. They shouldn't be doing that. But it's, if it's selling the gifts and get groceries, then it is what it is, and it sucks. It sucks that it sucks for everybody. But I don't,
Yeah.
if anyone's listening and they're thinking of not donating, you know, it's donate the gifts because it's what you want to do. It's going to help you, right? If you're going to donate, then donate. If people have, what people do with the things that you donate speaks on them. That doesn't speak on you. You know, you can't control what you do with the gifts that you give them. You can
I find that so many people these days, even a lot of my neighbors and the neighbors in the community, couple doors down, same building company that I rent from. I see the neighbors there all the time, and a community, right? And you get to talking with certain neighbors.
Right.
Some ones that I just like, yeah, I just keep on walking. And there's other ones that I love to talk to because hearing what they're going through, and the same thing, they echo exactly what you've just mentioned now, is about prioritizing what the needs are versus wants. And
yeah,
they
well,
have
that's just it, right?
sacrificing so many things. Like one of my neighbors always went to see family every year. This year can't go and see family. Can't even barely pay the rent, let alone buy food. They're having to go to the food bank now because and partially to the grocery stores, but they're more leaning to the grocery stores, but having to sacrifice bills and juggling bills to pay bills. Because they say that food bank can't always give them everything that they need, like for nutritional wise, and that's the problem too. It's the government will keep saying, "Well, go to food banks." Well, I mean, they don't give you everything you need. In some cases, yes. Cases, no.
Yeah, the food banks or the grocery stores that are affordable, like No Frills, and the ones that have, more affordable. I don't want to say cheap. I want to say more affordable, because cheap it's not the right word, but more affordable groceries. The reason that there's a reason why they're more affordable, right? They have, they expire quicker, or they're not the best quality, or they're the rejects that the other stores said no to. So it's just because you're able to buy them doesn't mean it's the best for you, right? Like there's a reason why they're more affordable than they are at the Real Canadian Superstore or the Independent or wherever it is that you want a luxury grocery shop. But yeah, it just because you can afford it doesn't mean that it's the greatest quality. And that means more trips to the grocery store and more trips. And for people with disabilities, like for myself, going to the grocery store, it's a big deal. I got to plan that like 3 days in advance. I have to plan how I'm going to get there. I have to plan, what the weather is going to be like. I have to, because if it's too cold, then I can't breathe, right? So, okay, if it's too cold, then I can't breathe, then I can't go. So I have to look at the weather. I have to plan accordingly versus the weather. I have to make sure I have somebody come with me because I can't carry anything because my heart's crap, right? So I have to plan that. And then I also have to make sure, like, okay, I have a backup plan in case I'm symptomatic that day. Like, it's just, there's so much going into it. And I have a lot more mobility than most, right? I have a car I can get into and drive, right? But that it doesn't stop there. And like going to Costco, I go to Costco like once a month or whatever to stock up on stuff. And there's always somebody who says, "Oh yeah, I can help you lift things." And I went once and I thought, okay, there's somebody there that's going to help me lift things. They gave me 2 grocery carts. So what am I supposed to do here? I can't push both. Exactly. And then the person who said, "Okay, well, I'll come and help you push them out." Okay. So we went out and he's pushing them out, but he clearly wants to be someplace else. So now I'm feeling like a burden, right? Now, okay, you want to be someplace else. Now I want to be someplace else. And this isn't how it's supposed to be when you're supposed to be helping me. And then because I don't look disabled, right? I pull up my car because now they're going to load everything in my car. I pull up my car and the woman who's actually loading my car says, "You're going to have to come and unload the trunk." And I said, "Okay, I can do that. Just give me a minute." She's like, "I don't have time, princess." And I am not, I got very upset with that. Just because I don't look disabled doesn't mean that I'm not.
Exactly.
And I had a few choice words, And I do have a temper. I'm a little hot-headed, especially when I'm provoked. And yeah, it was a scene that didn't need to happen, because whatever her opinion is, even if I'm not disabled, even if she's just loading my groceries into my car, that's her job, right? It's not my job to make her comfortable with her job. If your job is loading the groceries, then do so, but don't give me attitude because you don't like it. You know what I mean? So it's just another thing that we have to face as people with disabilities. And like, I feel guilty parking in a disabled spot, because I feel like, because I don't look disabled, people are gonna, get mad at me for it or whatever. So I try not to, but days when I'm, symptomatic and I can't walk very far, I'm having trouble breathing, well, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to park there. Like, it's just, this is what's happening. And even pushing the cart back, like, it's little things, right? You push the cart to your car, and like, I want to be independent, so I go and I get things that I can carry. So I load them into my cart, and then I push my cart out to my car, and then I load them into my car, and then like, now I'm exhausted, right? Because my heart's garbage. I'm at like 70% lung capacity, which means 30% of my lungs is dead tissue. So now I have to push this cart back to the cart area, which is like a mile away. It feels like it could be like 10 miles away for however I feel, right? And it just, like, people don't understand. They think, when you're looking at it through an ableist point of view, or a person who's able, I should say, it feels like, oh, why are you complaining about that? But it's because they don't live the reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The last time you were on the show, Debbie, you were talking about that your mom experienced poverty, disabled poverty, and that you acquired your disability. So just as a refresher, like, when did you acquire your disability?
Well, I was in a car accident in 2014, March 29th. I was with my sons. I was airlifted to the hospital in a helicopter. They put my entire body back together, luckily. I was lucky to have like the best surgeons in the world, like Dr. Lewendy, and it just, like, they put my bones back together in a way that I should have died that day. So anyway, months later, because of the lung tubes, and my body has this genetic condition, the lung tubes triggered it, so my body was producing more proteins than, like, they were trying to fix things that didn't need to be fixed anymore, is from what I understand. So anyway, whatever, a couple months, 3 years later, they figure out that after I coughed up blood, that I had a heart condition, and it turns out to be pulmonary hypertension. My mom, when she was 19, after she had me, her body, okay, let me digress a little bit. She when she was born in Mexico. She had my grandma had 12 children. She was one of the middle children. So, in big families, middle children are often kind of overlooked, and it's not intentional. It's just how it happens, right? Anyway, she had smallpox. She had smallpox. So that already put a strain on her immune system, that she survived that. And then she survived a couple of other things, like a major burn on her back. Anyway, moving forward, she had me at 18. At 19, she had a stroke, left her with epilepsy and epilepsy, and put her in a coma for a good couple months. I believe it was almost a year. And after getting out of a coma, and just, we had to learn how to walk and talk together, right? So when you have a baby, and like, your brain isn't right, like, you just had a stroke in a coma, and here's a baby, like, here, take care of this child. And it was a lot for her. And it sucks. It sucks that she was in that situation. It sucks that she was in that situation alone. And it just, she made bad choices sometimes, but when you only have one choice to make, like, and it's a bad one, then I don't know. I can't really speak to it because I was an infant, but anyway, I'm just going to talk about the positive things, and that we learned to walk and talk together. We learned how to do stairs together on our bums, and like those are the good things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I learned how to survive because of her. I learned how to, first time I ever called 911, I was 5 years old, and I learned how to do so from the nurse who stopped in weekly, wrote a big, underneath the phone, there was like this big piece of construction paper, and she had wrote it like kind of like in a child's mind on how to dial 911, right? So I could pull the stool up, get the phone out, and it was a rotary dial, so that's a challenge in itself.
Oh, yes.
Right. So I learned how to dial 911 when I was 5. That was, or sorry, the first time I ever dialed 911 and called in my mom having a seizure. I was 5 years old. And that was in Tillsonburg, Ontario. And yeah, it happened many more times over the year. In most cases, I kind of felt like her caretaker in a lot of ways, right? And parentification, right? There's a word where I felt like kind of like her parent, like I was responsible for her.
That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure.
It is a
So
lot.
much pressure, right? And like when you put too much pressure on something, it cracks. So there were a lot of cracks, and growing up was really hard. Being a kid who's just trying to like navigate everything, like all the social pressures, all of this, all of that. And like you have this huge pressure at home that you have to deal with. And sometimes I just didn't want to go home, right? I just didn't want to have that pressure anymore. I wanted to just be a kid. And anyway, yeah, it took us a long time, but we eventually became friends, and my mom and I, and she had a lot of troubles. Like, as I said, then the last time, everything was troublesome when you're living in a small town, and the basic things. Like now she thrived now with grocery delivery. That's the best. When I can get like it's delivered to my house, like, come on, she would have loved that. I remember when we lived in London, she would have like, McDonald's delivered for a short time way back in like the late 90s, because London's a test city, so they had that, and like that was like the greatest thing for her. She loved McDonald's, so it was like the best. And so delivery is great, but if you live in a town where you don't have that option, then you have to do it the hard way, and you have to do it yourself, because there's no one thing I wanted to say, I wanted to put out this idea, because there's a lot of people with disabilities who are at home who are still capable, and they can still work, but they just can't get to work. Like for me, getting to work, it would just be a chore. But like there's a lot of people with disabilities who can do like simple paperwork, and who can do like simple phone calls, or like book appointments, or like things like that. But there are companies who aren't willing to give them the chance. So I thought, wouldn't it be great if there was like some kind of organization that just worked for people with disabilities, trying to find them things that they can supplement their income with at home? Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, would be.
So if anybody's listening,
I think the pandemic has actually grown that work from home culture more, though, hasn't it? Because remember, like, for decades, literally decades, people with disabilities were saying, well, come on, can you not, as employers, can you not make accommodations for me as somebody with a disability? And they're like, no, sorry, you can't do that. And now there's accommodations coming out of your yin now, right? Because of the COVID, and everybody's working from home. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it always it always seemed like a theme when it came to employers saying, well, no, you can't work from home, you have to be at the business itself. And now COVID has opened up all the inequalities, but also at the same time opportunities for employers now to enable people to work from home. And I think that's awesome, Debbie. You mentioned that, because it's just having companies though that will actually believe in the person with a disability, that yes, like let's give them an opportunity to work from home if that's what they're able to do. And just finding the companies that were willing and able to do that.
Well, I think because I used to work for a staffing company like 100 years ago, it felt like but I know that if there was like someone approaching these businesses that have people working from home, you know, the federal government gives giant tax breaks to companies who hire people with disabilities, like giant, right? So there's the what's in it for me for the company. Hey, what's in it for you? You're going to have an employee who's going to work from home like you already have, but you're going to get this huge tax break, you know, like it just,
it's a win-win.
has to be. Yeah, right. It's a win-win. And then the person who has disabilities at home is working from home, and like, you know, you can make up to a certain amount over top of, I know for me, I think it's like $6,500 I can make on top of my CPP disability, right?
Yeah.
So I know there's always like that amount over top of what you're getting either provincially or federally that you can make up to. And like, I think that if there was somebody out there who would just form this company in their head and like make it happen and hire people with disabilities and put them to work, I think it'd be great. But, and then it would solve so many problems, you know, because we live in a world where like people, what's the first question people ask you? So what do you do?
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
What do you do? Like I used to make jokes, like, oh, I'm the masked crusader from Nilestown, you know, like I'm the Cape Crusader. I'm a vigilante, you know, like just shove it off with a joke, but like internalize that kind of thing, right? I don't do anything. I'm disabled, and what's wrong?
And I've talked about that a lot too. I mean, when we did when I used to work for the Disability Foundation for 6-7 years, and we actually had the research department from UBC involved in collecting the research data, and then they were going to share it with the provincial government. But you know, the researchers would talk, and they would say, you know, isn't it kind of sad that we put so much emphasis on work? And she said the same thing. It's like, you know, the first question people ask, and you know, anybody is like, what do you do for a living? And to there's so many people with disabilities that maybe have never worked a day in their life, but just because that may be true does not mean that that person does not have value, because those people, even if they've never worked a day in their life, are maybe upholding a lot of other relationships, and giving a lot of support and whatever you want to call it, cheerleading or shining a light. I mean, like I've always said, like everybody on this earth is shining a light in their own unique way, right? And you snuff out a life and you say, well, that life isn't important because that life is not working. Well, who's to say that life that isn't working is still not providing a huge amount of support? Well, I mean, let's take a very practical example of how many decades it was that, I mean, it's still the case where women that work, you know, that are homemakers. Traditionally, it's the woman that stays home, but sometimes it's the man. But in any case, if you're a homemaker and you stay at home and are looking after kids, I mean, that was such an underappreciated work, right? But I mean, whoever's staying home looking after kids, that's a shit. I mean, I was a single parent for 5 years when my first wife passed away, and it's a lot. I mean, that there's a reason why I stepped away from my job for a year, is because it was just too much. Like I had to step away and give myself a break so I could concentrate on just looking after my son, because I was just kind of overwhelmed, right? It's a lot. So for anybody that says, you know, it's nothing, it's not nothing. And like I said, even if somebody doesn't work at all, it doesn't mean they have diminished value. Everybody has value.
Well, it's that sense of just being belonging, like, and when even like say a person goes to rent a place, well, what do you do? Oh, I'm on disability. Oh, okay. Do you have any other you know, employment? Oh, you know, you could say, well, I work for myself. Oh, okay, then boom, it's like, or something like it. All of a sudden, it changes the whole perspective, right? They now look at you as an individual rather than just a number. And I find that in so many cases, stumbling across people with similar situations. I remember a time when I worked at the Ministry of Education, Advanced Education. The sense of belonging with people with disabilities, and there was actually other corporate people working there too, but they made you feel that you belonged to, just because that's what your job was. And then they went automated, so then my job was obsolete. I wanted to go back to it, and sorry, that job's no longer available. It's now online, right? So and it was interesting, Debbie, because it was all categorizing. I mean, you're just categorizing books and audio books, but every book had its own volume. So everything was all mixed up here and there and different authors. And it was so interesting. So I go to a public library and I'm like, hey, I remember that book. And I'm thinking, yeah, right away. And you had to really learn, like, it was like going to a library. And the same thing, what I had to do was I had to go through and each aisle and categorize every single thing. It seemed kind of tedious, but it was actually very interesting because I got to learn, well, this is how this works. And I encourage people like to really explore, if you're able to, explore the opportunities of companies that can offer, work from home. I mean, is it like you mentioned it, like call center stuff at home, or maybe a company that wants like home delivery. Maybe they have people working from home too. I don't know, but I think it's
it's there's just so much opportunity, and like people, I think, again, when they're approached with, oh, this person has disabilities, now they're going to think, okay, well, how am I going to accommodate this? Is this going to be more work to hire this person because they're going to have doctor's appointments or this appointment or that appointment? Like, yeah, there's stuff that we have to work around, but we, most doctors and everything else, they want to help us too, right? Like my doctors are great. If I say I have a thing, they're like, okay, well, can you come in this day or whatever? They're very patient with me. And some days I can't make a doctor's appointment because I'm not leaving my house. It's just not going to happen today. And my doctor understands that, I wanted to talk about MAID too, because MAID has become such a thing, and it feels like it's kind of going parallel to the Canadian disability benefit. And a lot of people on Twitter are upset, especially people with disabilities are upset that MAID seems to be the focus instead of, and for people who don't know what MAID is and they're watching this, it's essentially government assisted suicide. And they're kind of pushing it for people. I don't think they're pushing it. They're just making it more available for people who are in a no-win situation, I guess, if that's the right word to say. I don't know.
I would say that's probably they're making it barrier free.
Yeah, it's just, and it's unfortunate. Like, I can see the value in it. Like, if you're, well, not value, but like I can feel like, I don't know how to say it. Like, I can understand how someone would with severe disabilities who would just, I can't do this anymore. I can't. I can't. I'm tapping out. And it's every person's choice, right? But I feel like I don't know because I haven't been through it, but I'm hoping that there's a significant amount of counseling and a significant amount of problem solving, working around things instead of just offering people like the end deal. I don't know much about it, but I can understand how people are frustrated that it seems to be getting a lot more focus than the Canadian disability benefit, which would, I think, pull more people out of depression than offering them MAID. I know in my situation, my medicine, I'm on Remodulin. It's a subcutaneous medicine. It's $9,500 a vial.
Well,
I take 2 vials a month, so that's what, $19,000. If I didn't have the Remodulin support program, I would be signing up for MAID, right? Because there'd be no option. It's either that or die painfully. Like, I don't want to die painfully, so I would sign up for MAID. But luckily, I have that program where I don't have to think about that, right? But it's ridiculous how much money that drug costs, and I don't know what the parameters are for the Remodulin program, but I'm hoping that everyone who has this disease is able to access that program so they don't have to worry about money. Because money is such a stressor. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with this. I'm rambling now. Take over, please.
Oh, no, it's okay. When it comes to MAID, yes, you're right. There seems to be a lot of online presence when it comes to the focus on MAID. The government, it's like free suicide, basically. I mean, to not to sugarcoat it, like say it as it is. I mean, that's what I'm saying is that making it more accessible to people, where then the government has a legal responsibility to taking care of its disabled citizens in Canada. But they're taking care of big corporations rather than their citizens. That money that gets poured out of the country every year, $50 billion. $50 billion of our tax dollars that's getting handed out to multi corporations, that money can go back into helping Canadians with disabilities and giving them the resources, the financial security, the resources for their disability, extra equipment that they need, extra resources that they need to help them with their disability. Like that money could go into our healthcare system to help people with disabilities more, rather than corporations that don't pay taxes, they don't pay tax in this Canada or very little. I think it's a missed opportunity on the government, a huge missed opportunity. That people say, well, if you raise disability rates, this is what I hear. If you raise disability rates, my tax dollars are going to go up. Actually, no, they're not going to go up. Where the problem is that it's the big corporations that are taking advantage of this, and that has to stop. And that money goes back in. And I know that's why a lot of the MPs right now are pushing for a GLBI, Debbie, their guaranteed livable basic income. But
yeah,
now,
I like that.
Yeah, but now, of course, there's back and forth of, well, how much is it going to be? That's the big unknown question. A lot of them are going to go with an MBM, market basket measure. The problem is with that is market basket measure, it only captures a small, tiny portion of rent in that equation. The reality part, people's rents are so much higher across the nation. So I think that it needs to be reevaluated, the MBM, because right now the federal government's going to go with the lower one. I think it's going with of course, Joseph would probably be saying, Brent, you got the numbers wrong, the numbers guy. But yeah, I think they're going with 2018 data, which is, we're in 2023. So we're already way outdated on that. And as well as I do, and everyone else watching this, the government always goes with the lesser amount, which is the least most expensive. However, I've always advocated is that, well, what's the point in giving less when the outcome is going to be greater in the long run? If you don't invest into people with disabilities in the long term, give them the resources, because the outcome is going to be better outcome on their health, their financial well-being. They're going to put the money back into the communities that they live in, across the country. They can travel across the country back and forth. Blossom other communities, and betters their well-being in so many ways, their mental health.
I just wanted to rewind the tape a little bit though, because Debbie actually made a good point a little bit ago, that the cost of drugs is so high. Like, why does it have to be so high? I understand. I do understand that there's a lot of, they call it R&D, right? Research and development. I understand that, but even knowing that piece, it seems like a shitload of money for, and there's lots of drugs that are, it's not just the one drug that Debbie takes. There's lots of drugs that like hers that you're spending a fortune on, right? And you kind of wonder, like, why is it Debbie's responsibility to make up the profit in one fell swoop? It's like, is she responsible to put the company in the black?
Right.
Her alone, like it's almost like she alone is propping up that's not the case. So it's like, why do drug companies have to make up the money so fast, right? I don't know.
And ask me what's in it. Why is it so expensive? What's in it? And I said, I don't know, but it's like magic. I have no idea. Like last year, or no, maybe it was 2021. I got a receipt by accident in my delivery every month that I get, and it was like 5,600, and now it's 95. So what happened between
Yeah.
now and then, right? Like that's a lot of
Where the
money.
unicorn popped in, it's magic. It just poof.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, right. Like I don't get it. Like I have no idea, but I'm grateful and I'm
Yeah.
happy that I have it, because the other drugs, like there was no life to be had there. So subcutaneous remodulin is like the game changer for me. So yeah.
Oh, huge though. It does. It makes a huge difference in your life. I mean, having, you have to have that. Like it's not an option. Like it's a drug that you have to have. It's like Sonia, like she has to take diabetes medication, and recently they changed her medication, and it's affecting her blood sugar numbers a lot. Like it's off. It's just not effective, she said, and but it's not as effective. Sorry, I speak for her. But yeah, it's not as effective. So she's now going to have to go back and talk to the pharmacist and see, maybe go back and revisit her doctor, her specialist, and say, like, why did they change this? Obviously, it's the pharmaceutical issue. Well, let's go the cheaper option, right? I mean, it's still better. I mean, the kind that she took, they still have it, but it's not covered under pharmacare. So yeah, so now it's like saying, well, that worked for her. She's always taken it, but they changed it on her. So now if she wants it, she's gonna have to pay huge dollars
money
for it.
for it.
Yeah.
Well, and I know there's a lot of people that get really I don't know what's the word, like touched off or triggered when you mention like eugenics and made in the same breath, right? But in reality, there's not like again, if we talk about the drugs situation, and the government basically says, well, if all of a sudden if the government said in Debbie's case, oh, sorry, Debbie, we're not gonna fund the drug anymore. Well, that's now eugenics, because now you're putting a value on a life and saying, well, that life is no longer worth supporting because it's too expensive. So that becomes eugenics then, because you're putting a value on somebody's life and saying, sorry, too expensive. Here's assisted suicide.
Yeah,
right?
and that's quite wrong. And that's the name that she mentioned was called biosimilar, Sonia?
Yeah, biosimilar.
Biosimilar, it's called. And so that's a substitute for what was the name of it you were taking? Humalog. So instead of Humalog, it's called biosimilar.
No, that's the type of drug it is, but
it's the type of drug it is.
Yeah, it's called Amulog.
Amulog. It's called Amulog. Okay. So she's just telling me in the background Amulog. So I'm trying to remember all these things. I'm like, and actually, speaking of that, like a programming message for our viewers. Sonia is my roommate, and she's actually just so you know, FYI, Neil. Sonia's going to be doing a little segment upcoming soon. I'm not sure when, but we'll get her programmed in. So I'll be the host, and then what will happen, Debbie, is that you'll probably watch it too. Is that I'll be the host, and then I will move over to the side, and Sonia will jump in, and she will actually be on the show talking about what she's gone through in her life, and the obstacles that she has to face, and what she's going through. So that's going to be interesting.
Is that going to be a disability story, or is that just going to be?
No, it'll be. I think. Well, it'll be. Sonia, you're right here.
Maybe,
do you want to be just as a guest, or do you want to be on a disability story?
I don't know. Maybe a guest.
You want to be. You want to be. Well, she'll do as a guest, and then she'll be maybe as a disability story. So yeah, we'll talk more on that.
All right.
That was just a programming note. So back to the regular broadcast.
There you go.
Yeah, but it's piling in so much info of how government policies, Debbie, that changes a person's whole outcome of what it's like a ripple effect of how it affects their life. And I always tell people it's government policy, so it doesn't matter who's in government. They can change chairs and blame each other back and forth. But at the end of the day, it's policy across every ministry on how it affects people, of their decision making. And I just want to see them all work together and make Canada a better place for everybody, their citizens, and regardless of they have a disability, like yeah, there's hidden disabilities. There's people will get more disabilities, as we talked before in our previous podcast. I mean, they're going to develop disabilities and a lot more in life as time goes on. They may not even be diagnosed with that disability. It could be a hidden disability that they don't even know that they have. But recognizing who the person is, and not judging the person for who they are. I mean, like you went through with the grocery issue. Like
Yeah.
you are who you are. I mean, and I've gone through that personally myself, and saying, well, go ahead, Brent, lift up that. I mean, I'm like, I can't. Like, I have to be careful. Like, I really injured my back like really bad, and in my life I had never gone through that, and it was so traumatizing that now I have to be so careful. I mean, I can still lift things, but I have to be so careful. If I do something the wrong way, I will literally seize my back and excruciating pain all the way up. I dislocated a vertebra, one of the discs in there. I severed another one. It was like five things in my vertebrae that I had really compromised really bad, and had to go through physiotherapy and chiropractic treatment for several months and rehabilitate myself. Sonia would come by to visit, and like literally there was a time where I was she came by to visit, and I was actually, my roommate at the time said, oh, you have somebody come by to visit. I said, who? She goes, oh, Sonia's coming by. And I was just getting kind of literally pull myself out of bed, and then she was standing at the door, and I'm like, hi. And I literally couldn't put my foot down. Like, I was like, how do I do this? My mind's saying, yeah, Brent, like you're fine. And I was like, I couldn't, like, I could barely feel my leg. Like, it was shooting all the way down my arm. I could barely feel it. It's like it's almost like I had a stroke or something, but I didn't. And it was affected. It just really affected me. So I had to learn how to move my arm back and forth again. And a doctor would be going like, doctor going, yes, Brent, up and down. I know this is going to hurt. And I had to do that. And I said, I can't, doc, I can't. He goes, you can, because I'm working with you. Like, if you need to stop, like, and yeah, it was great. Like, I mean, he was awesome doctor. And he moved. But he told me going forward, like, you just have to really take care of yourself. Like, really don't take things for granted. That your mind may say, yeah, I can do, but your body says, hey, like, it'll tell you when enough is enough, and you need to work with that, and don't try not to fight it, right? But work with it. But know that you have a lot to give in life. You have, and I always remember, cherish the words, because he really is like almost like a teacher. You have a lot to give, and that is advocacy for change, right? So that, and I injured myself at the workplace where I worked, and so to bring awareness to the problems of all the inequalities of corporations, of holding government to account, corporations to account, and work with the situation. And this is where I am, and I love what I'm doing. Like, and who knows where the podcast is going to take off from. And I have visions of what I want to do, and I'd like to make it. I would really like to make this as a small business, because I think it has opportunity, Debbie, to really blossom and get other people in the disability community across Canada involved in so many ways. And I can network with you on that, and maybe ideas of what where that can lead to too.
When I started a small business from my house. I went back to school and I got my medical aesthetics diploma. Luckily for me, I was able to do so online. And I started a small business from my house. And when I thought, okay, there has to be something that can help me. There has to be some program out there in the great wide yonder that can help me. A person with disabilities wants to improve their lives, right? Like, the government's always saying, oh, we want to help people with disabilities. We want to do this. We want to do this. I scoured the internet. I went through everything because I have nothing better to do, right? I have internet, unlimited internet, and nothing but time. So, and then I couldn't find anything. So then I emailed my MPP, and I said, okay, here's the situation. What I want to do. Is there any programs that can help me? Okay, well, let me look into it. And then while I was waiting for their response, I emailed my MP. Okay, this is what I want to do. Is there anything you can find that will help me? Okay, so they sent me back an entire list. Each office sent me back an entire list of programs. Okay, I contacted every single program in both emails. Some of the links weren't even available anymore, like they're not existent.
Yeah.
So I don't know where they pulled those from. But like the Ontario March of Dimes, oh, contact them, they'll be able to help me. They weren't able to help me. Nobody was able to help me, not one office, not even my municipality, the city I live in, they weren't able to help me. Nobody was able to help me and get funding to start my business. Once you're in business and you've proven that your business is viable, then we can help you. Okay, but I need to get there because starting a business on disability, like I'm already scraping peanuts, right? Robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I have no money to like start a business, right? But I did find for women, there was a business called Paro, and then I found Rise Canada, who took a leap of faith with me. So I did find two, but those weren't from the government. Those were for myself, right? It's hard. It's hard out there, and it's hard to, even with Rise, and Rise was great with me, and they're still working with me. Like they have a mentorship that's helping me with my business, but it's just, but it's just, they also had to take a quick course in what disabled means, right?
Yeah.
Right.
What disability is, and that just because I'm not able-bodied doesn't mean that I can't do what I want to do, So yeah, I just wish that if there's anybody listening that's in government, that maybe they could come up with like some kind of grant or something for people in my situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Totally.
You make
it would
another
be- it would
you
be
make
really
another
helpful.
great point. You make another great point because like here in BC, we have the government likes to trumpet, like the provincial government likes to trumpet Work BC, right? The Work BC offices.
Right.
But I mean, I compare Work BC, like remember back in the 80s and 90s when we had the VRS, vocational rehab services.
Yeah.
Places like that. I mean, that is like 1,000,000% better than whatever Work BC can pump out. And it's a shame to me that there's not those VRS places anymore, because
it's fortunate.
a place like that is exactly the type of place that somebody like Debbie and countless others could like plug into, and they'd say, here's some money, like go to it, right?
Yeah, because they believe in people with disabilities, and like fully 100%. Actually, if I could give them 200%, I'd give them 200% because they helped me get through college. They believed it. I took one course, Debbie, and that was great. And I wanted to take another course, but I couldn't financially afford it. And I wanted to think of a student loan, and I was like, oh my gosh, like how could I do this, right? And I had pay it all back. I was working on my current student loan that I had to pay it all back. But there was another course I wanted to take, because my instructor at the time said, I really think that you have a knack for people, Brent. I really think that you would excel in this. And I said, I can't afford it. Like just get another student loan. I'm still working on my current one. What am I going to do? Keep piling up more and more. So I went through a VRS. They referred me to VRS, and they paid for me to go, and I took a business administration program, and I was so good at typing. I just sat back. They literally exempted me out of 2 components out of my course. So I'm just sitting back, like la, because I was taught to touch type when I was a kid, and so I could type like over 100 words a minute, and I was taught where I put a book over my hand, and I had to, so I couldn't look at the letters. No, Brent, you can't look. I'm like, I was like, oh, yeah, I can. No, and it was just like I was taught to learn, and because for me, it was able to type faster than I could write.
Yeah.
It was a hand and eye coordination due to visual acuity, and so for me to keep up with all that stuff, and it helped me a lot going forward in life, even through going through college. And I learned like business administration. I even took hotel management. So I know how every aspect of the whole hotel industry works. Unfortunately, I didn't pass one of the modules, which was a downfall for me. I was able to retake it, which is great. I did succeed after failing the one, and I had to retake it, which cost me another $1,800 to take that one module again. Unfortunately, VRS was not willing to pay. They weren't willing to pay for that. They said that's on me.
Yeah.
However, they said they paid for a portion of it. They felt bad, and I'm like, oh man. So anyway, they paid for a portion. I had to go and get the rest into the student loan. They added it to it. So anyway, I dealt with it. So I've learned a lot in life. What I've learned overall, going through academically, going through college, is that just to believe in myself, believe in that what I believe in going forward, and you can achieve the best you can based on your ability of what your beliefs are. I did one course and basically did an autobiography of learning about your own self and interviewing your own self, and actually having class grade you on that. That was scary. I mean, imagine. Yeah, and everyone took that turn. So yeah, it's. I think that opportunity knocks if it's there. I also believe that getting grants from corporations would be the best way to go rather than through government, because the problem with government sponsoring businesses, I mean, I'm not saying nothing against advocacy groups at all. So anyone watching this, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, because I know one person would be watching this and saying, Brent, oh no, it's not the case. What I'm saying is that I think 100% of the advocacy should be put into saying what you want to advocate for our disabled Canadians across the country. Some of them, unfortunately, they just don't want to say DERB when they're promoting. Say CDB, that's great. We need to get the rate that CDB out, but DERB actually helps people now, right? And that's the only thing that I have on one of the, or some of them, that basically say, well, they're not advocating for that. Why are they not advocating? Because I think the government muzzles them. The government muzzles them and said, well, yeah, but we're sponsoring you. We're giving you money. You can only advocate on so much, right? And that's one of the things that I learned over time. And I think also, too, I think gives the person this sense of not having a government connection of that when they want to run their own business. And doing their own thing. They don't want to have that government saying, well, we're still helping you, so we can say how it's going to go. And it's like same thing as housing, Deb. It's like a person should be able to live in market housing if that's where they want to live, rather than subsidized housing, right? So just give people enough money that they can actually make those decisions autonomy-wise based on what their needs are. Rent geared to income, it should be based on the individual, not the household. And that needs to be changed too. There's so many things, right? Because with the high rents these days, like there's one of the units in my building, for instance, there's 8 people living in a 2-bedroom plus a den. They have a 2-bedroom and a den there, and there's crazy. 8 people living in there. Why? Because they can't afford the high rents. But imagine if they were on rent geared to income, they could only have maybe 2 people that would be able to live in there, because it's based on the household. Now, based on individual, I mean, they would all benefit, because now they could all put that money back into the community. Fortunate for them, their rent is not outrageously high. They got locked in at a time where rents weren't skyrocketing up to what they are now. They're only paying $1,650 for their unit, which is wow, like that's amazing price. I mean, it's high, but I mean, for what the price is now in this day and age. And you said that
you said that they're going to come on the show at some point, right?
Actually, those are other people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, these are different units. Okay. Now talking about, when I would mention Debbie, when I mentioned about people having to make awkward decisions, like juggling things around in their life, it's like rob Peter to pay Paul. My mom used to always say that, rob Peter to pay Paul. Who got robbed? She goes, nobody got robbed, Brent. It's just
we're getting robbed.
Yeah, it's like then she jokes. She says the government robbed. I go, what? She says in taxes. Yeah. But the fact is, when I mention these things, it's juggling things around. So when I mentioned in a previous podcast and just recently, and I'll tell you the brief little story on this too, is we had some people that moved from Winnipeg, Manitoba, to British Columbia, out to Victoria, and they had lived here just recently for 2 years. They moved out here. There was two people, which I'll say their names because it doesn't matter. I mean, they're gonna come on the show too, eventually and tell their story. Jason and Stephanie, they moved to Victoria, British Columbia, and because his mother lived out here, like his parents live in Victoria, and so he wanted to be close to them, and so they both moved out here, and it's better weather. I mean, winter pig. I mean, so they wanted to get away from it, and the climate they felt was better out here. Unfortunately, due to her medical condition, which she'll tell more of her story on that. I won't give that away, but the climate for some reason had a reaction to her condition. So she basically had a lot of seizures, and they escalated more and more when she lived here. Jason didn't understand what was going on. She didn't understand, and it got to a point where they decided to go back to visit one of their friends, or maybe a couple of them. But they stayed with one of their friends in Winnipeg recently in the month of September. They were actually out there for a whole month. He called me up and he says, how's it going? I'm like, okay, fine. I mean, nothing's really changed out here. I mean, yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you guys when we get back. And like he was all gung ho and everything is going great and having a good time. Yeah, I mean, it's winter pig, but winter hasn't set in here yet. But the temperature is definitely different. And I said, well, yeah, it would be compared to there. I said, I've never been there in the winter, but so anyway, long story short is they made their way back here. And they said, well, we'll contact you, you and Sonia when we get back and we'll meet up for coffee. I go, sure, that would be really nice. I'd like that. I waited and I figured I'm not going to impose because maybe they want some time when they got back just to kind of unwind and, etc. Time went by and then they messaged me like 7 days later. I'm like, oh, yeah, so you guys have been busy. And no, we haven't actually. We've been spending time in the hospital. I'm like, oh no, yeah. So 2 days after they got back, Stephanie had she had a seizure and it lasted for 5 minutes. It was very critical actually. She got rushed to the hospital and yeah, it actually, the outcome actually was good. They actually got her onto some different medications now that is going to capture the symptoms. It's not going to stop the condition, but it's going to capture the symptoms and it's going to stop it so that she won't have a major seizure now. But the situation where they now observed that it's environmental. They've now the specialists they dived into it and she got referred to another specialist because one couldn't really get to the bottom of it. So to another top specialist who now said it's environmental and they've now concluded that. So now they had to make an ultimate sacrifice. And again, the word sacrifice due to health conditions and also financial because they couldn't find a place that's going to be cheap enough for them. They had to move back to Winnipeg. So they just recently moved on the 30th of November. They didn't want to move. They had to, it was a hard decision. They left their family behind. They have a year and 4 month-year-old little girl. And basically, yeah, they're going to have to just try and make a life back in Winnipeg for who knows how long. They're going to miss it out here because they said, they made some friends, right? And they said, well, you guys should come out here. I go, it's not a hop, skip, and a jump, right? I mean, maybe eventually. But yeah, that's kind of, I guess the moral story of people watching this and listening to what I'm saying is people had to make sacrifice financially, even with that medication. It's going to help her, right? Environmentally. But on a permanent basis, they said it was going to escalate more. So they had to make a decision of relocating themselves somewhere else within BC. They could have moved further out. I guess maybe it's just the climate of Victoria. I'm not sure. Barometric pressure, maybe it had an effect on her well-being, but they couldn't find affordable housing anywhere. And let alone, because now they have to find another room for their little girl. As she gets older, she's going to need her room. So they now need a bigger place. So they looked around. It was like $3,000 almost for a unit for them, for their family. They couldn't find it, so they had to decide to move to cheaper rent. But now they're going to be away from their network of people. They have a friend out there, but it's not where they actually wanted this to be their home, right? So like again, people having to sacrifice, make decisions based on financial well-being and health. It's brutal. And they had to apply for disability again. And that's another part that really bothers me is like your disability doesn't go away. It doesn't matter where you are in Canada. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It doesn't go away. It doesn't, like a magic unicorn, right? Poof. Oh, magically, and so they had to apply. And obviously they got their disability. They will have it approved there, but still, it should be transferable anywhere.
Yeah.
Automatic.
Yeah.
We've gotten to the top of the hour again, Brent. So I didn't know if
Did you
Debbie,
want to
Debbie had any final comments?
Well, I wanted to say about DERB. I know DERB, disability emergency. I can't remember the last bit. Anyway, DERB.
response benefit?
Yeah, there we go. It's not going to happen, and it sucks that it's not going to happen. But there's, we can blow our horns and complain and want it to happen, but there would be so much policy that they would have to invent just to get this to go. That, like Trudeau had to work under the Emergency Act to get CERB out, right? This isn't considered to be an emergency, even though we all feel like it is. It's not. It's not a countrywide emergency, even though it should be. But for DERB to happen again, it would stall the process of the Canadian Disability Benefit. So, well, yes, we want it, but do we want to wait more for this? It sucks. But that there's nothing in the interim to help us out until we get there. It sucks that our government is spending so much more on military events that are happening across the world than they are helping the people who live here. That sucks, and it hurts to see that happen. It's like nobody's hearing us, right? Nobody's
like deaf ears.
Yeah, they're not seeing it. They're making it a point to not be aware, and it's just unfortunate. But all you can do, and like people are so angry and they're so sad, and they're putting it all out in the universe, and okay, so here's another thing. Going back to my story at Costco, when the woman was like, being ignorant to me. I'm feisty. I can stick up for myself. I have no problem sticking up for myself and saying what I need to say. But there are people who would have been in that situation who would have internalized that, right? It would have hurt them more emotionally than it did me, even though it pissed me off. I get it, but there are people who aren't as in the same space as me. And for companies like Costco and wherever else it happens, Walmart, I'm not sure if it's happened at Walmart. I can only speak to my events at Costco. For the people at Costco, they should know better. They should do better. Everybody should be doing better for the people who need it, just because it's the human thing to do, right? Like,
exactly.
It's the human thing to do. Like, just take care of each other, help when you can, give where you can. There's nothing more awful in the world than people who are hoarding wealth. These huge companies get all these tax breaks, but where's that money going? It's not going back into like the corner store or into the community, into like banks in Switzerland or wherever. But it just, those tax breaks should be coming to us or to the people, maybe not to me, but like to the people. Anyway, that's all I got. Sucks.
Absolutely. I totally can echo that 100%. Because it's so important that people should be taking care of people. And like if your person is fortunate enough and they're going to get a tax break or whatever it is, that's great. If they can help people out, and governments, like I say, they have a responsibility. And it's sad. It's sad that I can see where DERB is at. And just recently there was a petition that was out, and they voted it down. Now they said no, they're not doing it.
Not gonna happen.
And and I know there's so many MPs that are fighting for on the good part. They're fighting for Canadians with disabilities, but again, the Trudeau government, they just want to just vote it down. Nope, don't want to
No,
deal
I
with it.
don't. This sorry to interrupt, but some of the politicians that are very vocal right now about DERB and disability issues.
Yeah.
If you go back in time and you read through time, they weren't as vocal before there was a spotlight on it. You know what I mean? Like they're capitalizing on disability, and that's what's getting them their 5 minutes on the floor so they can say to their constituents, hey, I'm working. See me work? This is why I earn my money. But they're really not doing anything. They're just blowing the horn. And nothing that they're doing is actually, it's not providing any value. It's not giving any traction. It's just them trying to make themselves known. But we do have great, and I don't want to say that every MP is like that, like Mike Morris from Waterloo. Brilliant. You know, we love him. He's genuine in his efforts. I feel that he's not trying to make it his platform. He's just trying to help. And like, if every politician was more like him, I feel like it's a better place. But I don't want to say it's just the Trudeau government that's not listening.
No.
No, because like that's really not fair, because I don't think any government is really, because we've had all kinds of governments and not one of them's done anything.
This is true.
The liberal government's the first one that said, okay, we're going to do a thing. And even though it's taken them longer to do the thing, they're still doing it. Right. And like, there's a lot of governments that we've seen come through Canada that have had power, that have said, oh, we're going to do this thing. And then it never happened.
And then they do. Yeah.
Well, shout out to Mike Maurice too. We're going to have him on the show on December 19th.
Yeah, you tell him I think he's brilliant, and
he's awesome. I always love having Mike come on, and because he's so personable. He gets it. Like Debbie, like he really
genuine.
And listens to what people are saying, and you're right. When I mentioned like liberal government or conservative government, doesn't matter who it is. Like they've all had that opportunity of making things change. But there's only a select few that, you know, I mean, that are really, they're trying, but then it's like they're just, almost like their voices are being silenced. You know, it's sad. I know Mike Maurice, he really gets it. Kudos to Mike. He really,
if he was running in my area, I'd vote for him every time after time. You know, I would go and I would speak for people to vote for him. You know, like I would campaign for him if he was in my run.
Yeah, I would be his campaign manager. I would do it.
Yeah, like I would hands up, I'd be in that office. Yeah. But and he's probably, I know actually he's not probably, he is the only one I could say I would do that for. Rest of them, meh. I don't see anything of them other than pictures that they're taking with people who are disadvantaged, and that's just a photo op, you know. But anyway, yeah, it's getting kind of negative, so sorry about that. But
no, it's all good. Yeah, you know, it's just throwing it out there. I mean, it's all. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think so many people that are suffering right now, and I guess they just want to see hope across the country, across this nation, and I think the opportunity of getting some kind of help out to people, it's like they missed that opportunity. Like the government missed that opportunity a long while back, like 3 years ago, eh? And I just hope that Canada Disability Benefit gets escalated fast, but it's not.
Happen. It's not going to get escalated. We're going to be lucky if it comes in for June. But at least Camilla, I can't pronounce her name. She said, okay, this is how we're going to do it. These are the steps we're going to take. And she's given us a time frame, right? We can expect after Christmas, at the beginning of June, in January, we're going to have an amount. We're going to have a timeline. We're going to have structure. So that's something to look forward to. Yeah. All we can do is just hope. And once we have an amount, then we can start to like breathe easier, right?
Yeah.
But it's coming. It's not here now. But you know,
Christmas.
It's coming, right? I just I guess in parting, you know, parting is such sweet sorrow, but in parting,
until next time. Yes.
Yeah, until next time. I just everyone take care of yourselves, take care of each other. If you see somebody who needs a hand, give it to them. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to thank you, Debbie, very much for coming on today. It's been a great pleasure having you on, and talking about the issues that affect your life and Canadians across this nation, with disabilities. Again, anyone can have a disability, hidden disability, multiple disabilities, and just the government has to across this nation just has to make things more inclusive for Canadians with disabilities, make it more accessible, being able to have the tools of, if you want to be able to work from home, and just have a barrier-free Canada, barrier-free, and to give people and give people the resources and the tools that they need, give them the income that they need to survive, rather than giving the money to corporations. And I'm not, and my narrative is not about tackling corporations. Brent says tackling corporations. Well, that money, $50 billion. That's not chunk change. Like that used to be the operating budget of British Columbia. Imagine. So that's like, at one time. So that just kind of puts things into comparison of, that's a lot of money. So that money can go back into, helping Canadians with disabilities. Before concluding, Debbie, once upon a time, some people look at it as 50 billion. Once upon a time, of course, before things started escalating up with the cost of living, inflation, it used to be $1.2 billion. $1.2 billion out of a budget of 50 billion. Imagine that, just a little fragment that would lift seniors, people on income assistance and disability up above the poverty level. 1.2 billion. Now, because of cost of living, I would say it's probably about 3 billion. Probably about 3 billion now out of a whole huge amount. So it can be done. And so when the federal government giving away all this money, there's I think the opportunity is there to actually make things happen. I don't have the magic number of what the amount should be. And the numbers guy would talk more on that one when I have him on, but he would, he gives a breakdown on that. But just the general, the basics, just for the individual plus the person with a disability, now they need that extra added cost because they have ongoing daily costs in their life to maintain a nutritional life and a healthy life if they have the resources, right? So, meaning giving them the supplements that they need rather than applying for them at the government saying you need to have all these conditions in order to get these supplements. Meanwhile, maybe those supplements actually are helping that person, but they don't have that condition now and they can't apply for it because the doctor says, well, you don't have that condition. But meanwhile, like say a nutritional supplement or maybe there's a dietary supplement. There's so many different supplements that the government puts people through all the red tape rigmarole. Meanwhile, it can better their well-being, their health, and they're costly to go to the stores to buy that stuff. And the government says, well, you can apply for them all. Okay, well, how about just give the people the resources that they need? They can go in, figure things out for themselves, what they feel is good for them. So, that's another thing to advocate for. And I guess to conclude on my comment on it is, I just want the governments across Canada to listen to Canadians with disabilities, their lived experience. Like we know best what we need. And I think it's now time that we're all ganging up on them saying, hello, like listen to us, and yeah.
All right. Well, it's been great talking to you guys and it's been great seeing you again. And hopefully someday you'll have me back on. And,
I definitely will. I will.
All right. Well, hey, have a great, sorry, my kids are rambling out there and banging and banging. So I have to go and tame the wild beasts in my house. But have a great afternoon, guys, and or evening or wherever it is out there. Have a great one.
Great.
Right.
Thank you very much, Debbie.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
See you in the new year.
You too.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.